I think the Tennessee Titans are about to go streaking, and they're going to do it with a DeAndre Hopkins revenge game. I'll explain how on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I'm going to break down exactly how the Tennessee Titans can get their second win in a row, keep their playoff hopes alive against the Houston Texans. We're going to talk offense. We're going to talk defense. We're going to talk individual matchups to watch. Before I get into all that, thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Again, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, nearly 25 years as a Tennessee Titans fanatic, a staff writer for Sports Illustrated over at alltitans.com, and a certified film junkie bringing you the X's and O's every single week. It is a Game Plan Friday. Let's dive into how the Tennessee Titans can beat the Houston Texans. First and foremost, we have to point out the circumstances here. The Titans will be wearing the Houston Oilers throwbacks against the Houston Texans. There's a lot of pride on the line, a lot of bragging rights on the line. There's going to be a lot of emotions involved at minimum with the fan bases. So a big game for bragging rights here. And will either of these teams end up making the playoffs? Who knows? But at minimum, bragging rights are on the line. So it's a big game from that perspective. And what the Titans need to do is they need to let Will Levis cook. Okay, the Titans need to attack the Houston Texans pass defense. The Texans have allowed the 7th most passing yards in the NFL this year. Also, they are one of the worst teams in tackling in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. So a team that doesn't defend the pass, a team that doesn't tackle well, the Titans can take advantage with their playmakers from that perspective. Now, how can they do that? Well, we got to dive into how the Texans pass defense works. The Texans are a zone coverage team, 79% zone rate so far this year. And what zone coverage do they prefer the most? Cover 3. They run 34% cover 3, which is their highest coverage by far. So how does this differ from what we've seen recently? Well, the Titans struggle against tight man coverage, and they're better against zone. And the Titans have been able to face a few zone teams the last 4 weeks or so. But a lot of those teams, like the Colts, like the Dolphins, they're cover 2 teams. Well, not the Colts, but like the Dolphins and like the Panthers, they're cover 2 teams. They want to have 2 high safeties. They want to play cover 4. They want to play cover 6. They want to do things like that. So the Texans are a zone team, which the Titans have seen, but they're more of a cover 3 team is what you have, like a Gus Bradley defense in Indianapolis. So when you're going to attack cover 3, what I want to see from the Titans is dagger concept, where you have an inside receiver who runs a vertical route, and then you have your outside receiver who runs the deep in route. I want to see deep crossers and crossing routes across the middle. I also want to see mesh concepts where you have short drag routes going across each other. 5 wide, I think we're going to see, because last week against the Jets, the Texans put 6 people on the line of scrimmage to try to show pressure to Zach Wilson. So what I want the Titans to do is basically attack that cover 3 zone by going over the middle of the field. The defenders like Jimmy Ward, who's one of the Texans' safeties, linebackers Henry To'oTo'o, Denzel Perryman, Christian Harris. I think they're all vulnerable over the middle of the field. And again, the Texans are not a good tackling team. So you don't want to challenge Jalen Petrie deep consistently. You don't want to challenge Derek Stingley Jr. on the outside consistently. What you want to do is you want to attack those middle of the field defenders. And when the Texans play that cover 3, where they have Stingley responsible for deep third, they have Petrie back deep as a single high safety, that is making that middle of the field vulnerable, and you're putting your worst coverage guys in that area. So again, dagger concept where the dig route is coming over the middle of the field to the inside. Crossers going through the middle of the field right over the linebackers. Mesh concepts where you got these short drag routes where these linebackers for the Texans are in zone coverage. They're going to have to come up and take guys and stay with them. That's why I think this can be a huge DeAndre Hopkins revenge game. Who is going to be excellent on these crossers over the middle of the field? Who has already scored touchdowns this year on short drag routes where linebackers try to stay with them and they can't do it? Mesh concepts where it's important to sit down in the holes of these zones and feel where defenders are. It's DeAndre Hopkins. So against his old team, the team that talked bad about him in the media, Bill O'Brien, I wrote a story about this for Sports Illustrated, but Bill O'Brien did some nasty things to DeAndre Hopkins when he was with the Texans, said some things to DeAndre Hopkins that is pretty crazy. They tossed him away like nothing to the Cardinals. You know that DeAndre Hopkins wants to get his lick back here and wants to show the Texans and their fan base and the organization exactly what he's still capable of. So with what the Texans do schematically on defense with their cover 3 zones and with what the Titans can do with DeAndre Hopkins in particular routes that we talked about, Hopkins can have a huge day over the middle of the field. And one other thing I want to point out here is the Texans are a team that doesn't blitz either. So zone coverage and no blitzing, the opposite is what you want to do against the Titans. You want to play tight man coverage and you want to bring pressure. The Texans just don't do that in their nature. Will they do that? Will they adjust? Will they play more man coverage and will they bring pressure to try to go against the Titans' weaknesses? Or will they do what they do as a defense, which is blitzing 28 or 22% on the year, which is bottom 10 in the NFL in blitz rate, and playing cover 3 zone and playing zone coverage? The Texans are one of the highest teams in the NFL in zone coverage as well. So a lot of times in these circumstances where I'm like, will teams go away from what they do and do what hurts the Titans, or will they do what they do? And more often than not, teams do what they do. So look for the Titans to attack in the passing game over the middle of the field. Obviously, that feeds into the play action passing game as well, because that's going to bring those linebackers up, bring that safety in the box up. So it's all going to work together here. But I think DeAndre Hopkins, what I want to see, guys, just one particular play. I want to see the Titans in 3 wide receiver set with NWI on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, but basically in a tight end position. And I want to have DeAndre Hopkins motion in from the outside and then on the snap hit a deep crosser over the middle of the field. Let NWI go vertical. Let him take it to the outside with a corner route to create space that way. But I want to see Hopkins used in motion, coming inside and then going over the middle of the field full speed. That's what I want to see from Tim Kelly in this game. So let Will Levis cook. Let DeAndre Hopkins have his revenge game, attack the zone coverage of the Houston Texans. And with Will Anderson Jr. probably out of this game, and with the Texans being banged up, I think the Titans are going to have a great opportunity to get the job done here. So that's what I'm looking for on offense. I'm going to talk about what I'm looking for on defense. Before I do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Look, it's so important to find quality candidates right now. It's harder than ever, but LinkedIn makes it as easy as possible for you to find them, because LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals who make it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or the resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Titans fans, let's continue today's game plan preview edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, diving into how the Tennessee Titans can win this game. My promise to you, every Friday episode, Thursday night on YouTube, I know, but every last episode of the week during the season, I'm going to be breaking down exactly how the Titans can win the game on offense, on defense, from an individual standpoint. We talked about attacking the zone coverages of the Houston Texans on offense. Now I want to move to defense and how the Titans need to bring the blitz against Davis Mills. Before we get into that, do want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, it's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. I'm going to be going live immediately after the game is over here on the Locked On Titans YouTube channel. Make sure that you stick with me there on Sunday. Monday, we're going to be going into the film of what happened, talking X's and O's just like we are now, but after the game. Wednesday, we look ahead to the next game, which is against the Seattle Seahawks. Thursday, crossover Thursday for behind enemy lines information. And then again, we're back here on Friday to break down the game plan. So make sure that you guys throw a thumbs up on the video. Again, get subscribed, stay subscribed. Let me know whether you think the Titans win this game or not. At the end, I'm going to give you my final prediction towards the end of the show. But looking at the Titans on defense, I pointed it out in the crossover Thursday episode yesterday, which you guys really seem to enjoy, okay? Everybody hydrate out there. But you got to stop the run. That's first and foremost, because if you're playing against Davis Mills, if you're playing against CJ Stroud, it doesn't matter. To me, it does matter, but I mean, when it comes to stopping the run, you're going to need to stop the run either way, because you need to get the quarterback in third and long. And as I pointed out yesterday, in wins this year, the Texans run the ball for like 100 yards. In losses, they run the ball for 78. So a 20-yard drop-off there for the Texans in the run game. If you get the Texans in third and longs, especially with Davis Mills, you are going to have the opportunity to send the house. Look, the Texans, again, like I talked about, the Texans are banged up here. They're probably not going to have Nico Collins. Tank Dell is out for the season already. So you have lost some of the best weapons that you have as the Houston Texans. So Nico Collins and Tank Dell, the two wide receivers for the Houston Texans, were excellent against zone and man coverage. Period. They've been good. But everybody else on the Houston Texans at wide receiver, you think about Noah Brown, you think about Robert Woods, former Titan. So you guys think about that. They just don't scare you. So to me, I'm going to bring pressure. I'm going to bring pressure off the slot. I'm going to blitz. And I'm going to make Davis Mills get the ball out of his hands or hold it and make a mistake, because I'm not worried about Davis Mills running. That's the thing. You're not worried about Davis Mills scrambling. That's not a fear, okay? So if you bring pressure, he's not going to escape the pocket and make a bunch of plays on you outside of structure. That's just not what Davis Mills is going to do. So I'm going to force the issue. And since they don't have wide receivers right now because of the injuries who scare you, I guess I'm just not worried. So I'm going to play man. I'm going to play press. And I'm going to challenge Davis Mills and force him to beat me down the field and force him to make plays out of structure and force him to get out of the pocket and escape. All right, so just to show you, Davis Mills under pressure, okay, under pressure last season, 2022. Under pressure. He had a 41.1 grade per Pro Football Focus. His completion percentage was 46%, dropping 23% from when he was kept clean. He had 7 touchdowns, but 7 interceptions when he was under pressure. You have to blitz Davis Mills, put pressure on him, force him to not be comfortable Basically, don't let him get in a rhythm, back in the pocket, all that. No. We're forcing the issue against a team that simply doesn't have the talent on offense. And George Fant might be out, and that means Charlie Heck might start. Laramie Tunsil was banged up as well, although I expect him to go, but maybe he doesn't go. So either way, I'm bringing blitzes. And again, what I want to do is I want to blitz off the edge. Now, the Titans, like the Texans, like I talked about, the Titans don't blitz a lot. The Titans are in the bottom 5 in terms of teams who blitz, only 21% this year. So it's not like the Titans are a team that blitzes a lot. But in this game, and the Titans have been playing a lot of zone coverage on their own. The Titans play only around 20% man coverage. They're not a team that plays a ton of man anyway. But I want to see the Titans play man coverage. I want to see them bring slot blitzes so that they can get those offensive tackles, who are the best part of the Houston Texans offensive line, is the offensive tackles. Get those offensive tackles dealing with the slot blitz and the edge pressure. And then you give Harold Landry or Arden Key or Danico Autry better matchups and more space in the interior. So spread out the Houston Texans offensive line so you get those one-on-one matchups in the interior and force those offensive tackles to deal with defensive backs off the edge instead of your best pass rushers. All right. So that's what I would be looking to do in this game on defense. Again, play tight man coverage, send pressure at Davis Mills, force him to make plays, or really force him to make mistakes. That would be my plan. And you can only do that. You can only do that if you're in 3rd and long situations because you've stopped the run. All right? Because you've stopped the run. Now, the Titans have injuries of their own. Christian Fulton is going to be gone. You're going to have Trey Avery in there. And I know it's easy to dog on Christian Fulton and blah, blah, blah. And I get it, but he's still a better football player than Trey Avery. So it's a downgrade. We learned that in the Chargers game where Trey Avery went 12 for 15 with 100 yards and 2 touchdowns on him. So just keep that in mind. But even considering that Christian Fulton will be out of this game and considering that the Titans secondary isn't the best, I really don't care because, again, the Texans' weapons do not scare me. They simply don't. Now, Dalton Schultz will be back in this game, and that is the one guy that I think is a worry. Xavier Hutchinson, you can put Sean Murphy-Bunting on him. Robert Woods, I would put Trey Avery on him, or if they put him in the slot, then Roger McCreary is going to be on him, and I'm totally okay with that. That's not something that I'm worried about. Noah Brown is another guy who's going to be on the outside or playing some slot options as well. And Noah Brown has had some great games, and he can beat you deep. But, again, I'm bringing that pressure. I'm taking that chance. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking that chance. We're going to talk about the individual matchups. I'm going to confirm my prediction from yesterday as well to cap off the show. It's a DeAndre Hopkins revenge game, but it's another receiver that I'm looking at that needs to make a big play in this game. So keep that in mind, and I'm going to dive into that in just a moment. Before I do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Look, guys, this time of year can be tough for certain people. I mean, the holidays sound like a fun time, but it can bring up painful memories or tough times that you had. The weather changes, and I know a lot of people in my family really struggle with, just feeling seasonal blues and things like that. And if that's something that you're dealing with or something that you kind of want to work through, there's no better place than BetterHelp. I've worked with BetterHelp before as well, back before last season, moving into a new house, a lot of stress, the show, everything like that. And it was really helpful just to have a way to center myself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, I'm telling you got to give BetterHelp a try. Again, it's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule, and that really helps. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And I like the questionnaire because it really allowed you to identify what exactly it is that you want to work through here. You can actually pinpoint something that you're trying to work through and help narrow down so you have more control over the process and a better understanding of where you're trying to go. You can also switch therapists at any time for no additional charge, which, in my opinion, anything like this, it's very important to have a good relationship with the person that you're talking to. So being able to switch therapists without having to pay extra bucks, that's huge, in my opinion. Huge feature there with BetterHelp. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Titans fans, let's cap off this game plan preview edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about the offensive side of the ball. I want to see the Titans attacking zone coverage. We talked about the defensive side of the ball where you stop the run and bring pressure. Now I want to get into some of the individual matchups. I want to kind of zoom in to some of the individual players that I'll be watching for on both sides of the ball. Also, I want to confirm my prediction for this game. Before I get into it, though, thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. And remember, I will be going live immediately after the game ends on Sunday to break down all the action. But I also want to let you guys know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. So it's 24/7 all day long, covering all the sports in the country. It's Locked On Sports Today. It's here for you again, 24/7, covering all the top sports stories of the day. You get local experts like me from all the Locked On shows. Plus, you get national coverage from our national shows like Locked On NFL. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Be a part of history. But I'm going to dive into the individuals, and I know that I talked about it being a DeAndre Hopkins revenge game, and I think he should have a big game, but I'm looking at Treylon Burks, man. All right, it's been 2 weeks now. You've been back after missing multiple weeks with a concussion. The team said they were bringing you along slowly, only gave you about 10 reps and similar routes in that first game. Now, Treylon Burks ran a bunch of clear-out routes. He's not really doing anything but running vertical other than the quick screen that he got behind the line of scrimmage. So he's not running any kind of diverse route tree. I mean, we are talking plain Jane here. He's not really involved in the game. Last week, he had more snaps than DeAndre Hopkins, but did nothing, literally nothing. All right, in this, the one thing that I know that Treylon Burks can do well here is run vertical routes. That's the one thing I know that he can do well. And when you have teams who have been playing cover 2 and cover 4 with 2 high safety shells, it makes it impossible for him, or not impossible, but just not as likely for him to hit some of those plays. Against this cover 3, where you're going to have that classic combination for the Titans where they can run the deep post with the intermediate crossing route, or you could keep that vertical and just make it a go route down the sideline, which the Titans often do. You know, all those big plays that Chris Moore has been hitting all year, running that post against team zone coverage. Treylon Burks should be able to get some of those opportunities, whether it be go balls down the sideline, whether it be that deep post against that single high safety coverage. Treylon Burks should have opportunities to get some deep balls. And if the Titans, like I talked about with DeAndre Hopkins, bring Treylon Burks in motion and let him run a drag route over the middle, underneath, and just dump it off to him and let him run with it. Just get him into the game like that. Scheme up some of those plays for Burks where he can get some underneath action against those linebackers, against those middle of the field defenders of the Texans, and he can get some space and he can run and get comfortable and get back having some positive momentum and get some confidence going back again. Outside of Treylon Burks, I'm looking at Jalen Duncan against Jonathan Grenard. Jonathan Grenard is going to be the only good edge rusher that the Texans have available to him, with Will Anderson probably being out of this game. I mean, Jerry Hughes is a good player, but he's an older player. They brought in Derek Barnett. Is he going to help in his position? Myjai Sanders is a guy who they're not really, who hasn't had a ton of opportunity after he kind of flunked out in Arizona. So I'm just not worried. There are decent players there, but I'm not as worried as if they had Will Anderson in there. So with that, if Jalen Duncan can take on Jonathan Grenard, who has 12 sacks, 42 pressures, according to Pro Football Focus, if Duncan can do well enough in that matchup, like he did against Bradley Chubb last week, just well enough, I think the Titans can handle the rest of the pass rush. Sheldon Rankins is really good, but I think the Titans can handle it. So I'm looking at Jalen Duncan. Can he handle his matchup That's something I'm zooming in on. And then Chigakonkwo, same logic here. The middle of the field defenders, linebackers. Chiga's been catching some drag routes, catching some screens, doing things like that. I think Chigakonkwo can have a breakout statistical game in this matchup against the Texans based on what we see schematically. So I'm looking for Chigakonkwo. Going over to the defensive side, I talked about playing man coverage, and I also talked about Dalton Schultz being a guy who I am worried about as a pass catcher for the Texans. He could be back in this game. Well, if that's the case, I want to see Amani Hooker playing man coverage against Dalton Schultz. I think Hooker is quick enough and physical enough to play in that matchup and win throughout the day, especially if he knows that he doesn't have to worry about anything else. He can just do that. Your one-on-one man coverage on Dalton Schultz. I think Amani Hooker can win that matchup, and I think he'll need to. I talked about slot blitzes earlier, coming off the edge and attacking offensive tackles. I think with Christian Fulton out, the Titans may go back to having Elijah Molden because they have Kayvon Wallace and Amani Hooker playing safety. I think they might go back to having Elijah Molden like they did at times in the previous game. Go back to having Elijah Molden be that early down slot player, and Molden can blitz off the slot on early downs. And then when it's passing downs, you can bring Trey Avery in, an outside cornerback, kick Roger McCreary into the slot, and then Roger McCreary can bring on those slot blitzes on third downs or just play coverage if he needs to. I think that's what the Titans need to go back to here in this game, because I want to see those early down slot blitzes to get some pressure on Davis Mills, bring some back pressure on any play action, and again, widen out that offensive line for the Houston Texans. Finally, Harold Landry. Harold Landry was named AFC Defensive Player of the Week. He had 3 sacks against the Dolphins after the bye week. He's been absolutely incredible. He's really turned it up a notch. He's going to get an opportunity in this game to either go against George Fant or go against Charlie Heck. It could be Charlie Heck based on the hip injury that George Fant has. Regardless of who plays, if it's Heck, obviously, certainly they need Landry to do this. But even if it is George Fant, they need Harold Landry to continue to be their best pass rusher, be that 5-year, $85 million edge rusher that they paid for after the 2021 season. Landry's been that since the bye. Obviously, coming off the ACL, the slow start, he's looking good. But they need Harold Landry to really show out and put some pressure on Davis Mills. And again, I think that athleticism, getting that bend back, getting that speed around the edge back. I think Landry, especially if it's Charlie Heck at right tackle for the Texans, I think Landry could have a huge day. So again, I think the Tennessee Titans win this game 20-16, could even be 23-16 if the Titans have some more success on offense, which I think they can. But these are the type of games where we think the Titans should play very well, and they just play mediocre and keep it close. But I still think they find a way to pull out a victory here. Again, attacking cover 3 for the Houston Texans. Let Will Levis cook and get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. Stop the run and bring pressure against Davis Mills, who has not performed well under pressure throughout his career. And then Treylon Burks, Jalen Duncan, Chigakonkwo, Amani Hooker, Roger McCreary, Harold Landry. I'm looking for Titans win 20-16, DeAndre Hopkins revenge game. Hopefully that's what happens, and I'll be back with you guys on Sunday, going live after the game to break down exactly what did take place. But I think the Titans go streaking here, get 2 wins in a row. My outro music is chopping and screwing right now. So with that being said, that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I'm your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans. I mean, tighten up, everybody. What a crazy finish. Hope it's not an omen.